this video, we are walking through the highlights of an inspection in this beautiful brand new home in Bridgeport, Texas. At the time of this video, early 2024, the home is for sale. There's a link in the description for this home. However, the same builder has other homes in the area available as well. Call me and I can let you know about this or any home for sale. I'll be talking with Russell Richardson of His and Hers Home Inspections. Russell will walk us through what he does for a home inspection and why it's so important. I'll have a link in the description for the home and Russell's business. Whether you are buying a home, remodeling, or just want to know the intricacies of your home that need to be repaired, consider calling Russell and Lindsay of His and Hers Home Inspection Services. Hello everyone, I'm here with Russell Richardson. I'm going to let him tell you what he does.
Good morning everybody, I'm Russell Richardson with His and Hers Home Inspection Services LLC. I am a licensed professional home inspector in the state of Texas only. We basically are governed by TREC, which governs all your brokers and your realtor partners out there too. Back whenever I was licensed 7 years ago, we were required to take over 300 hours to get our license. A lot of that was online courses with quizzes and tests to test for understanding. And then we also had a certain amount of hours that we did in the classroom and a certain amount of hours that we did with live inspectors out there doing inspections, hands-on training out there. So there was a lot going into it to actually become a home inspector. What we do is a non-intrusive inspection of the home, of the property, to give the buyer as much information as we can to be able to make a good solid decision if they want to move forward on that property, they want to negotiate for repairs, and so on and so forth. Our report is information for that buyer, and it's also a negotiation tool for the realtor partner and the buyer to go back to the seller to get some things repaired or to get monies off the property to pay for those repairs after they move in. There's a lot that we look at in the property. We're going to go through the home and look at some different things. We're in a beautiful new house today, so there's probably not going to be some things that may stick out because some of the things that I see may be hidden and we won't have time to look at those things. But I'll kind of sweep through the house and kind of show you what we do as we go through the inspection, and we'll start here in the kitchen. Very good, so here we are in the kitchen. The kitchen is where I start all of my inspections. Once I go through the house and turn on all the lights and kind of scope out the floor plan, I come back to the kitchen because there's some things that take a little bit of time in here, and I want to be close to the oven and things like that when some of these are running. What we do in a home inspection is we really want to stress all the plumbing in the house. So we will actually put the stoppers in the sinks, and we will fill up sinks and tubs, run showers, just to make sure that we're stressing those plumbing pipes at the time of the inspection. A lot of times whenever we're running the water in our personal property, we don't actually flood the pipes and fill those pipes. Oftentimes there are leak in plumbing pipes, drain pipes specifically, that can come from the tops of the connections that you don't actually get unless you fill those compartments full. So we'll be running water, filling sinks, checking the disposal to make sure that it's wired properly, that it's properly protected. We run the dishwasher on our normal cycle to make sure that it's performing just fine. We check for insulation on all of our appliances too, to make sure that they're installed correctly, that the disposal is fixed to the sink like it's supposed to and plumbed correctly. The dishwasher is attached to the cabinet so it doesn't rock forward. We check the oven to make sure that it's calibrated for 350 degrees. We check the stovetop and burners to make sure that they're working properly. Last thing you want to do is move into a house and find out that 3 of the 4 burners are working and you've got a burner that's not working. We also check and make sure that our safety indicators are showing. So if the hot surface light on an oven or our cooktop is not working, we note that. Two of the most common things that we find in kitchens usually have to do with the dishwasher with improper mounting. There'll be some mounting brackets that'll be missing. The dishwasher will be sliding out of the cabinet, rolling forward. Or the vent hood is the most other common one that we run into. And you can see here we've got a rigid smooth wall vent pipe right here on this one. This is the proper materials for a vent hood. We often find flexible pipe in here that is not approved for a vent hood. And we also find these to where these are not installed right either. Where this microwave unit right here is the vent hood. This vent hood in here actually exhausts out to the exterior right here. Oftentimes we'll find where the microwave was installed and they forgot to turn the motor and it's still exhausting out inside the house instead of exhausting towards the outside of the house. So that's one of the most common finds that we find here. Along with improper sealing of this, we'll have it leaking air up in this cabinet, which could push moisture and grease up into this cabinet and cause a problem later on. We also, in the kitchen, we're looking for proper GFCI protection in the receptacles. If Connie will sweep right over here, you'll see this little receptacle right here that has this nest button. All the circuitry in the kitchen now required by code should be GFCI protected, and that's to prevent from electrical shock while you're around the water, the sink, and the dishwasher and things in the kitchen. One of the most common things that we find in kitchens for lacking GFCI protection, especially on homes that were built back in the early aughts, I guess, or the early teens, is there'll be receptacles on the back side of a bar, and where that receptacle is within 6 feet of the kitchen sink, that receptacle is also required to be GFCI, and it's often one that's missed in the kitchen just because of where it's located. Hey, we are now in the laundry room. A couple things that we look for in the laundry room that are really important, especially when it comes to dryers and dryer safety from a fire hazard standpoint, is we look and see how the dryer is actually connected to the dryer vent in the wall and where that goes to. In this house specifically, I'm not in the attic, but my assumption is here that this one goes straight up and out the rooftop fixture up there. So we'll be looking at that in the attic also, and we'll be checking the rooftop fixture to make sure that that is done correctly. And then also on a new construction where we have the ability to actually look at this right here, is I'll actually get on the floor and look up into this and get a shot all the way up this pipe to make sure that it doesn't have any damage or crushing done to it, or any kind of screws that are protruding into it that can collect lint and cause a problem later on. But we'll take a good close look at that. And then also, the NEC actually updated the protection in the laundry room in 2020, where they require this dryer receptacle to be protected with GFCI protection at the breaker, and then also the washer receptacle. This is now considered a wet area, just like the kitchen and the bathrooms and the exterior in the garage. The washer is actually supposed to be GFCI protected. You can see we've got a GFCI receptacle installed in this house. Once again, we're looking at plumbing connections. We're looking for any evidence of any kind of moisture problems, especially in an older house. In a newer home, we shouldn't see that, but in an older home, this is a very problematic area because washers do overflow, hoses do come loose. We're looking at the baseboard, the trim, the opposite walls in this area. So the other side, what's in this may be a closet on the other side. So we're looking really closely in that closet at the lower baseboards and carpet and trim to make sure that there's not an in-wall leak or anything going on here. So here we are, we're just walking the house, looking in the living room. As an inspector, what we do is we go through and we'll check all the windows and doors. We're basically checking to make sure that all the latches are working properly, all the sashes are working properly on the windows to make sure that they're opening and closing. We're also looking for any binding. Binding can be an indicator that we've got some kind of foundation movement going on. We're also looking for proper caulking around the windows for energy efficiency. One of the biggest finds that I see on this is on new builds is this lower window trim right here against the wall right here, is they'll forget to put that caulking bead underneath here to keep that cold air from coming in or that hot air from coming in there. We're also taking our flashlight and looking up and down the walls. We're looking for indications of any kind of abnormal settling on the home. We're looking for diagonal cracks in the walls that could be occurring. We're documenting those in our report, and it kind of tells a story of what's going on with the home as we do the inspection. And then once we kind of get done evaluating the entire house, looking for those cracks and things like that, we'll actually kind of put together our assessment on how we feel that the foundation is performing. My foundation, we have to make a statement in our report whether it's performing or not performing or performing with deficiencies. So as we're going around looking at that, if anything's out of the norm, we feel it's got more than normal settling, then we'll note it in there for either a structural engineer or a foundation specialist evaluate the foundation to see what's going on there with that movement. We also look at fireplaces really closely. Fireplaces are very important. We're looking for proper clearances. We're looking for proper vent flue connection, seeing what it looks like in the chimney outside. Looking at the inside of the box to make sure that there's no damage done to it. Very common these days, especially in Texas with the cold weather that we've had the last several years, that probably almost every fireplace that's been in use needs to be cleaned. So we're looking for creosote buildup any kind of blockage that could occur in that flue. And if we see that, we definitely recommend having that cleaned out before you use it. Once again, just like windows, we're opening and closing all the doors, closet doors. We're looking for any binding, any latches not working, to make sure that there's no evidence of more than normal flexing with the foundation or any settlement. Once again, off the tops of the doors, you'll see cracks off there. Everywhere you have a hole cut in the wall with a window or a door, that weakens the structure of the house. That's the weakest parts of the home. That's where they'll show evidence of flexing more than normal. So we're looking at those areas really close.
Okay. I've got a question.
Yes.
When you came in, you turned all the lights on. You're not just checking for light bulbs, are you?
No, not checking for light bulbs. In fact, I won't even mention light bulbs in my inspection because that's deferred maintenance in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do is I'll turn them all on as I go through the house. That helps me with my routines. I'll go through and kind of scope up the floor plan. I'll turn all the lights on, and then as I go through each room, I actually turn the light off after I exit the room. Actually, I turn the light off before I exit the room because my flashlight will actually show me moisture stains in any problematic areas with the lights off better than with the lights on. Now, if I inspect a home and I've got 90% of the bulbs not working, definitely it's going to be noted in there because then that hinders my ability to make sure that the switches are working like they're supposed to. But one of the things that we do check too with the switches, a lot of homes will have hallways and different things like that. We will have a switch that's called a three-way switch. We will have two switches on one light component. We want to make sure that both of those switches are working. That's a common find on three-way switches is one switch will be working that light, the other switch won't, and it was wired incorrectly. So we'll try to catch that and put that in the report so it'll be working. So here we are in the front bedroom of the house. One of the things as an inspector that we look for on the homes, we want to make sure that they have functional smoke detectors in the house. Smoke detectors are required in every sleeping area and every hallway leading into those sleeping areas. And then if the home has gas appliances, natural or propane, they're required to have a carbon monoxide detector somewhere in the home. And then if it has an attached garage, they're also required to have a carbon monoxide as one of those units. And that can be a combo unit, a combo smoke detector, carbon monoxide. That can be a wall plug-in unit. We just want to make sure that they have one. I will tell you that if I see a plug-in unit in a home and that's the only carbon monoxide that they have, I will note that in the report because that could actually be pulled and moved with the people that are actually selling the house. So I want to make sure that I note that because that's a portable unit being pulled out of here. So here we are in the guest bathroom here. Like I said, in the kitchen, we do stress all the plumbing, so I'll be filling up the sink here to make sure that the lavatory is not leaking underneath, to make sure that the plumbing connections look good. One of the things we also look for whenever we have single handle faucets is we want to make sure that the hot and cold are designated on the correct side. So for example, like this shower right here, this should go cold water first and then hot second. Oftentimes we will actually see these where they're plumbed in reverse and the hot water comes on first and then it blends into cold. That's actually considered a safety hazard in a tub because we don't want somebody to turn on water thinking it's cold and then it ends up scalding somebody or hurting somebody. But like I said, I'll start this up, I'll push the drain in here, we'll fill up the bathtub, we'll make sure that it's draining really good. Once we get it done, we'll check the spouts to make sure that the shower's working functional. On new construction especially, I'll look and make sure that the plumbing connections were done correctly. I can't see them in the wall, but oftentimes I've actually had homes where I run the shower, they've done the plumbing test and the pressure test, but they don't check the shower really good, and then I'll have water that will actually be running out from the tile on top of the bathtub because there's a misconnection back here in this wall, and it won't show until you run the shower. The bath will run just fine, but then you'll have that misconnection on there. So we'll look for things like that. We're also looking for caulking and sealing around the spouts and the plumbing in here to make sure that water's not getting back in there. We also check to make sure that the toilet's functional, that it's flushing like it's supposed to. We also check to make sure that the toilet is bolted to the floor like it's supposed to and it's not rocking. And then one of the things we also do in all the wet areas is we're looking for caulking around the backsplash and the countertops here, caulking underneath the countertop to the cabinets right here. Water can get off of here and float underneath here and then get into the cabinetry here and do damage to the cabinets. In all the wet areas too, we're also looking at the baseboard trim, the tub to the floor, the trim next to the shower and the baths to make sure that that's all caulked really good, because water gets in this area, it's a wet area, and you don't want that water getting in underneath the trim board and actually pulling up into that trim board and doing water damage inside the house. So this home has an attic mounted air handler up there. We're not going to go up in the attic for the purpose of this video, just for safety reasons. I'm standing here by the thermostat. As a home inspector, what we do is we actually test the heat in the house and also the AC in the house. Now keep in mind, if it's winter time and it's 20 degrees outside, we will not run the air conditioner because of potential damage that could be done to the condenser outside, and that'll be noted in the report. But like this beautiful day that we have today, we would be testing the heat and then the AC in the house. With the AC, what we're looking for is a temperature differential of 15 to 22 degrees. If I'm getting that differential from the return vent to the conditioned air, then we're good to go on that. Also go around and shoot IR temperatures of all the registers around the house to make sure that I've got an even flow of conditioned air throughout the house in both the furnace and the AC modes. And then probably the most important part of the inspection is just the install of the air handler, especially in attic mounted units. We find a lot of problems, and everybody knows somebody that has had a moisture stain in their ceiling due to an AC failure in their attic. If you don't, consider yourself special, because everybody knows somebody that's had that moisture stain that's occurred up there. Usually what that's from is improper installation. Either the condensation drain pan doesn't have proper clearance around the air handler in the attic, or there's some deficiencies in that pan that it's had rust in it and it's penetrating through it and it's actually leaking in the attic. Or there's two different drain lines on it. You could have both of those stopped up and it could actually overflow. So we're looking at all of those things when we're up in the attic to make sure that it's properly mounted up there. We're also looking at the unit itself to make sure that it's working as efficiently as it can. Depending on the type of insulation that the house has, some of those things are more important than others. So we're looking at the seal of the cabinet. The unit's running or in the attic, and we're looking for air loss up in the attic area up there. You don't want to have an attic that's 120 degrees in the summer and then you're losing a lot of cold air out of that unit up in the attic. So we want to make sure that it's sealed properly, that it's taped up like it's supposed to be, and that that conditioned air is getting to the house, the living area, and not losing it up there in the attic. All right, we've got the attic access ladder down right here. One of the most common finds, believe it or not, that we find in homes, especially older homes, is that the hardware is not being maintained on this attic ladder. And if you're like me and my wife, who likes to decorate for Christmas, that has like 30 totes, I'm up and down this ladder quite often. So we want to make sure that all the fasteners and hardware are nice and tight on this, because the last thing I want to be doing is carrying a tote up this ladder and find myself face down on this ladder on the floor. This house, like I said, it's a new construction home. Very common in new construction home that it has spray foam insulation up in the attic, which basically means that the insulation, instead of it being on the ceilings in the house up in the attic, it's actually up on the rafters and the decking underneath the roof line up there. So if you think about an ice chest, you got a styrofoam ice chest and you've got a lid on that ice chest. These efficiency energy envelopes on these homes today are just like an ice chest. Basically, you've got this spray foam insulation that encapsulates the whole house, exterior walls, and also the roof decking components up in the attic. Each house is insulated just a little bit different. So when we get in the attic and we're looking at the insulation, we're looking at proper coverage, proper depth. We're making sure that, like in a spray foam house like this one right here, that we don't have any breaches in that envelope. It's quite often that we see on new builds, whenever they do the encapsulation process with the foam, that there's areas that they don't foam, like extended patios, garages, and things like that, where we see where they didn't properly seal those areas out, and there might be a breach in that envelope. But if you think about an ice chest, if you were to take and poke a 1-inch hole in that, how efficient would that ice chest be? You've basically lost all your efficiency there. So same thing with spray foam. We're looking for those areas of deficiencies where that flow of moisture and heat or cold can come in and out. And it does a lot more damage to these encapsulated homes than what it does a conventionally insulated home up there. The attic is also one of the places that nobody goes to. An inspector, whenever they're inspecting the attic up there, we need to pay close attention to not only the insulation and the depth of the insulation and how that was installed. We're also looking at the wiring for the house. Up in the attic, it's very common, especially in older homes, because people have added light fixtures, they've added rooms, they've pulled the electricity farther than what it originally was when the house was built. we see improper junctions and splices with wiring up in the attic. It's very common on a home that we find just wires twisted together. We find junction boxes that are open and exposed wiring up there. These are huge fire hazards. These need to be rectified and taken care of. And usually they're like top of the list on negotiations whenever somebody's going to buy an older home, if they continue to move forward on it, that they want to have all of those things that are safety hazards repaired, because they don't want to walk into a house and knowing that they're sleeping in a house that's got some kind of fire hazard going on, especially in the attic. So we're looking for things like that up in the attic. Like I said, once again, the air handler for this house is actually up in the attic. We're looking for those things that I mentioned before as I was standing next to the thermostat up there. But I'm also looking to see where that actually drains to. There's a primary drain and there's a secondary drain. The primary drain pulls the condensation off of the evaporator all the time, and then it's supposed to be plumbed into the house plumbing, usually underneath the sink in a bathroom before the drain track. The secondary drain comes off the pan and actually goes to the exterior of the house, usually around a soffit vent over a window, where if that primary fails and it gets blocked and stopped up, that secondary will pick it up and put it outside in a conspicuous place so you can call for service. So, you know, your water heater has a drain that you want to be aware of, and your AC attic install unit has a drain that you need to be aware of. And if you ever see water coming from something on the outside of your house, call for service, because you've got something going on that potentially could cause more damage to your home. All right, we're standing at the water heater closet right here. These are located, water heaters are located in different areas in homes, anywhere from the attic itself to the garage, to a closet in the house like this one, to an older home where it's a hallway down to the bedrooms. They can be located pretty much anywhere. Today we have the tankless water heaters too that are out there. Those also can be installed in all those same locations. They can also even be installed on the exterior of the home on an outside wall, which is very unique, but we do see it from time to time. Some of the main components that we're looking for in a water heater, because you got to remember, most homes are equipped with a 50-gallon water heater right here. And it's got 50 gallons of water in here that's fed by a water line coming in. If there was a big problem with this unit, we want to make sure that it has a proper drain pan and coverage and properly plumbed to get that water out of the house. Because if you think about that amount of volume that's in there plus the water coming in, what kind of damage it could do in a hurry in a home. So we want to make sure that that's plumbed correctly. Also, we always look really close at the plumbing connections at the top of the tank. There's a hot water and a cold water up there. Where those connect, there's dissimilar metals that are connected together, and if those are not done properly by the plumber, that you can actually have a chemical reaction that occurs called galvanization that actually creates heavy corrosion on those connections, where 90% of the time, if a water heater is leaking, it's leaking from the connection where the water lines go into the top of the tank, just because of those poor connections. So we're looking at that. We're looking for evidence of previous leaks and noting those. And then also on the top of the unit, there's what's called a temperature pressure relief valve, or TPR. That is actually a safety valve that if this unit was to stay on and fail, basically the thermostat failed and it actually stayed on and got too hot, well, that tank's going to expand with that high heat in there. That temperature pressure relief valve, what it does is it releases that pressure and pushes it to an outside drain out there. And it should be plumbed correctly with the correct materials. One of the most common things we find, especially on a house that's been retrofitted and the unit's been changed out, is Bob next door knows how to do plumbing, he said, and he puts in the water heater and he uses incorrect materials. He doesn't plumb that TPR valve correctly. And then all of a sudden you've got a TPR valve, which basically is a safety hazard because it's not plumbed right. It's supposed to be gravity fed, never running uphill. There are certain materials that can be used and certain materials that cannot be used on that. I'm not going to go into details, but that's one of the most important things that we look at on a water heater to make sure that it's correct. Once again, you've got a CPVC line back there in the back of that closet. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but that's going to run to the outside of the house. It's going to be within 6 inches of the ground out there. So if you're doing yard work or whatever and you see water coming out of this little 90 degrees CPVC coming out, that means that that TPR is leaking and there's just a problem going on with this unit and you need to call for service. Hello, one of the most important things that we look at from a home inspection standpoint is looking at the panel to make sure that the panel is up to today's code, making sure that it has all the protection that it needs to protect the residents inside the house. We do take this dead front cover off. We're not going to do that for the inspection, but we take this cover off, and we're looking for proper wire sizing throughout the panel. We're also looking for proper protection, like I said, from an AFCI and a GFCI. We're looking for any evidence of any handyman wiring that's going on, any double tapping where 2 wires go into a breaker that are not approved for two wires. Any kind of heat that possibly could have been in that panel before causing a problem throughout a circuit in the house. We want to make sure that we note all that. Probably the longest area or the most deficiencies in a home inspection report usually are going to be around that electrical. There's so many different components that we look at, from the panel to the branch wiring in the house, to the attic, to the exterior, to the garage, to the pool if the house has a pool. Usually that list from electrical is usually the longest list on the report. Like I said, looking at these, taking it off, looking inside. One of the things that we look for too, and I know this is a brand new nice house, is the homes that were built back in 1965 to 1975, there was aluminum wiring that was used in the homes, which aluminum is a great conductor out there, but it had some problems and it actually caused a lot of house fires out there. Those fires were caused from the connections where the aluminum wire actually expands and contracts more than copper wire, and the receptacles and switches were not allowing for that, and loose connections would occur that would cause heat and sparking and arcing in those boxes, which contributed to a lot of house fires back there. So that's one of the things as a home inspector that we're looking for. So we're cognizant of the year that the house was built for multiple reasons out there, from plumbing standards to electrical standards and things like that. We want to make sure that we're looking for those things. So if Connie calls me and she's got an inspection for me that the house was built in 1974, automatically in my mind, before I go into that house, make sure that you're looking for aluminum wiring. Sometimes it won't be easily accessible to the inspector because of things that occur over the life of the home. Partial rewires can actually cover that up. I've actually had a house been fully wired with aluminum. The panel was updated. They relocated the panel to the outside, and then all I see in the panel is copper wiring. But when I'm in the attic, I'm looking closely at what's going on up there, and I see some wiring that's marked aluminum. So then I go a little step farther. Then I start taking off cover plates for receptacles and switches, and I'm looking for that aluminum wire throughout the house. Not going to go into details on aluminum wire. Aluminum wire can be repaired, and it can be just fine in the home. It's just making sure that those proper connections have been updated with the right materials and done the right way to make sure that that's safe going forward. But that's one of the other things that we're looking for from an electrical standpoint.
Also, while we're standing here, what about the box itself? I know some of those in older homes can be problematic.
Yeah, great segue right there. So yes, there are 2 different panels that have been problematic in the past. They date way back. The Zinsco panel, which is a brand name for a panel, and also the FPE stab lock panels. Anytime any inspector sees one of those in a home, we automatically defer it to a licensed electrician to evaluate to make sure that that panel's safe. Those panels have been contributed to house fires in the past, but we definitely want to make sure that we get a licensed electrician to evaluate those. A lot of the components can still be made for those and they can be updated, but sometimes, unfortunately, at a large expense, those panels might need to be replaced. And that could be anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500 to replace an electrical panel. So yes, we're looking at those and we're notifying our clients of those. And if they have major concerns or the electrician has major concerns with those, we want to make sure that those are evaluated. And just while we're here too, we're also looking for grounding electrodes. This house and most new homes have what's called a UFR ground. It's the guy's name, that's why it's called a UFR ground. Basically, it's a piece of rebar that runs underneath the foundation, and the grounding electrode for this house is actually connected to it. There's a little cover in this storage cabinet back here in this off the back porch that the connection is in there. You won't see an exterior ground rod on a home like this because it has a UFR connection. And the reason that those were updated and they use those now is because those grounding rods that were put in the ground, over time those degrade and they get disconnected and they're exposed to the elements. This UFR ground is protected inside and underneath the foundation, so it's more of a constant ground that will stay connected to the house for a longer time.
Well, speaking of electrical, it made me think this points out some of the importance of getting an inspection, even if you're not selling it, but you're planning major renovations, or if you're going to buy an older home and flip it, correct?
Correct. Absolutely. Yes.
Because those things could all be identified and they could fix them while they're doing the renovations.
Absolutely.
Instead of waiting to
Yes.
till it's too late.
Right. You're exactly right. Yes.
Okay.
Knowledge is grand.
Yes, it is.
So very good. We're on the outside of the house right now. So once I get done with the inside of the house and done with the attic, I actually move to the outside of the house. And basically I do a perimeter walk all the way around. So I'm looking at the siding, what type of siding that it has. Is it hardy? Is it old masonite siding? I'm looking for deficiencies, moisture intrusion, moisture damage, areas for moisture to get into the home to cause that damage. I'm also looking for disruptions in the siding, whether it be brick, stone, or aluminum siding or vinyl siding, to show any evidence of any kind of flexing that's going on. I'm looking around the windows to make sure that the windows are flashed properly, that there's no problematic areas where water's going to get into the home. And then once I do that, I will go to the rooftop up there. And I don't know if you can see up here, but I'm not going to get on the roof today. But whenever I get on the roof, I'm looking at shingle condition, I'm looking at how it was installed, I'm looking at any penetration that comes through the roof. So you can see these plumbing vents right here, and you can see these other vents right here where they're the mechanical vents in the bathrooms and the laundry room come out to the rooftop. Making sure that those are flashed correctly, the nails are sealed like they're supposed to. A real common find on homes that are even just 5 years old is the little rubber boot around that plumbing vent right there will actually get cracked and it'll cause a leak inside the house, or will actually collapse and hold water and cause a bigger leak in the house. So we're looking at all those penetrations to make sure that they're fine. And then we're also looking to see how that attic is ventilated, what type of ventilation that it has. This house being in spray foam encapsulation, there are not ventilated attics up there, so you won't have any fresh air coming in and hot air going out. These houses are sealed up just like I talked about before, like an ice chest. On an old conventional type insulation with loose fill blown in or batting insulation, you really want to see two different methods of ventilation on the roof for the attic in there. Those will be soffit vents, it could be gable vents coming in, and then some type of rooftop vent to let that hot air out. We want that air to be moving through those attics that have conventional type insulation up there to keep those attics from getting too hot. Even in Texas, even the best ventilated attics, I've taken temps upwards of 135 to 140 degrees in those attics during the summer. So this is like July and August, but if the air's not moving, it makes it even worse. And you think about your efficiency to your HVAC system, just how much heat that's putting in your living quarters of the room, and then also the wear and tear on your HVAC system. Not alone, your roofing materials up there are baking in an oven. So you got the sun on top of those roofing materials, and then you've got that high heat that's being held in that attic without that proper ventilation. We want to make sure that ventilation is there to protect those components. So we're outside. This is the HVAC condenser right here. It actually came on when we were outside, so we figured we'd come over and talk about it a little bit. Basically, as an inspector, I want to make sure that there's no physical damage to this, that it's sitting level. It's not down on the ground itself. It's got a 3-inch clearance from the ground to protect the coils, to protect the unit. I want to make sure that it's got a service disconnect. That's what that box is right there on the wall for a service provider to be able to shut the unit off to lower the risk of shocking, the shock hazard basically when they're working on it. It's also supposed to have a receptacle in IV2, so if they have tools that they need to use, if they need to plug in, they've got a receptacle here to work on this unit whenever they do it. This is actually a heat pump unit. This is the heater that's on this house right now. So this unit is actually reversing the Freon through the system right now to actually provide heat for the house. These are super efficient. And most new homes now that are on electric and no gas, they actually use heat pump systems. So we're still outside. One of the other things that an inspector looks for around a home is we're looking at how the water moves away from the structure itself. We want a positive grade, so the water runs away from the foundation. We don't want water standing around a foundation of a house. We'll make notes on damaged gutters, damaged downspouts, gutters not being present. Gutters are important. Gutters are not required by code, but they definitely will lengthen the proper function of your foundation if you put gutters around the full perimeter of your house. We'll be looking around the house to see what type of erosion has occurred. New homes not going to have a whole lot of erosion, but after the home's 3 to 5 years old, especially if the house doesn't have gutters on it. The foundation could have the footing exposed on it. We want to make sure that that's always protected and we don't get water underneath the foundation that could cause serious damage in the future. So we're looking at how the water moves around the property. All properties are a little bit different as they add on in subdivisions and build homes. They've got to be cognizant whenever they do the infrastructure of where the water's going to go. This street could be built and then they build a street of homes behind the house. They got to make sure that whenever they do that second street and they put those homes in, where that water's going to go, is it going to impact this house with the homes that they're building here. So as an inspector, we're looking for those types of problematic areas. We're looking at vegetation growth. We're looking at erosion around the home. We just want to make sure that we're not going to have a problematic area around the house. And oftentimes you'll have tiered lots where the street will be going up a hill. We want to make sure that we're looking at that from any kind of retaining walls and drainage that might be around the home, any kind of problematic on the uphill side of the home, because that would be the side that would catch the water from coming off the hill. So we're looking really closely at the ground clearances to the foundation and the brick, or the foundation and the siding, and we're looking to see how that water is getting away from the house. So that's one of the evaluations from an inspection that we do on the exterior of the house too. Hey, just to wrap it all up, thank you so much for the time, Connie, and let me do this today with you.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Obviously, there's a lot of details that goes into a home inspection, and we just kind of hit it at a very 30,000 foot level here. We didn't hit it at ground level. So, I'd like to wrap it up by basically saying, home inspection is very important. I'm not just saying that because I'm a home inspector. I will tell you that I've been doing this, we're in our 7th year now, and I've never had anybody hire us to do a home inspection that walked away and said, well, that was a waste of money. Nobody has ever said that. I always hear, well, I'm super glad we did this. We weren't going to do it, but our realtor talked us into it. We looked at your company, we looked at your reviews, we decided to go ahead and do it, and we are sure glad that we did it. I've never had anybody say it was a waste of money. So, and on the flip side of that is a lot of times when people are buying new construction homes, they get a warranty with that home. That warranty extends out 12 months and then further on different things and components, foundation and appliances and things like that. But what you need to know is all these home builders out here, most of them are very good. Most of them are rock solid. I see a lot of great structures out there, a lot of great homes out there, but you got to remember, a home builder is only as strong as its weakest subcontractor. So which one is it going to be? Is it going to be the plumber? Is it going to be the electrician? Is it going to be the roofer? Is it going to be the HVAC company? Which one is going to be their weakest link that you wish you would have known before you put all your personal belongings in that house? And that's what a home inspection does, is we go back and we look at all the install, the build, the structural components, whatever it may be, framing, roofing, HVAC, electrical, to make sure that you're protected, not only from safety, but just, the annoyance of a plumbing problem after you move in, things like that. It's worth that anywhere from $400 to $800, depending on the size of the home and what components that home may have. It's a good peace of mind to have. And then something to think about too on a new home inspection, that there's also that warranty period that comes up, and most companies like ours, we will offer a discounted second inspection. It's called a warranty inspection. We do a lot of warranty inspections, and what we do on those is we basically come in about 11-month period, and we do the same exact inspection to go through and make sure that everything's holding up as well as it was supposed to. So we'll do that at a discounted rate to help you get a list to your builder on any components that need to be repaired at that time within your warranty period, to help you take care of your largest investment that you'll ever make.
One last thing. I know that there are different kinds of inspections, and speak to that between the difference you would do for a conventional or a FHA or VA inspection.
So basically, our inspections are the same. Okay. Where the differences come in, and that's very common, that there's a little bit of a misunderstanding with that. General home inspection, we're bound by TREX SOP, standards of practice, to do a general home inspection. That general home inspection is the same on all different kinds of financing out there. So we're looking for all of those components and all those needs that may be needed, whether it's an FHA, whether it's a VA, whether it's conventional, whether it's cash, USDA. We're doing those inspections to take care of all of those at a given time. Where the nuances come in, and this is very common, especially with buyers, is they have a misunderstanding of who's what. There's a home inspector, then there's an appraiser. the appraiser differentiates what they look for based upon what type of financing is going on. So there's going to be a VA appraiser, a USDA, an FHA. They're going to look at different things. We're doing the job to cover all of those to where we don't have the problem. And it kind of segues into that too. So there are different kinds of other inspections too. So like there are, if we do a VA, if I have a buyer that's a VA, they are required by the VA that they have to have a termite inspection. We don't do termite inspections, but what we do is we have several subcontractors that we actually bring in, depending on where geographically that inspection is occurring, and we bring in those inspectors to do that on site the same time as we're doing our inspection. As a convenience, we set that up through us to have them there at the same time so that our clients aren't burdened with setting up another inspection. We take care of that for them. So one of the things that we ask when we're setting up an inspection, we often ask, we always ask, because we discount for military, first responders, and teachers. We give a 10% discount. That kind of segues us into that, you're VA, you're going to need a termite inspection. So we have that conversation and tell them about the additional fees associated with that. There's also some other inspections that can occur out there by different professionals. Some inspectors out there, not my company, but some inspectors out there actually offer some additional inspections with their businesses. They offer some sewer scopes. They'll actually scope the sewer lines. Some inspection companies do a little bit more in depth when it comes to septic inspections and things like that, and identifying some different things. What we do is when we do the inspection, we're very detailed. If there's something that we see that we think needs further evaluation, then we'll recommend that in our reports.
Yes, and you mentioned septic. You will do well and septic for farm and ranch properties as well,
yes,
right?
Yes, and we actually, because we want to keep our fees at his and hers as simple as possible, we don't charge additional for the septic and the well inspection. Now, our septic and well inspection is more of a high scope inspection. From a private well standpoint, it's more about how it's performing at the time of the inspection, wiring components, plumbing components, leaks, performance based on stress, how it's recovering. Same thing with the septic. It's more of a high level, depending on the type of system that it has, whether it's a traditional system, whether it's a hybrid system, whether it's an aerobic system. We have different levels of depth that we go into that, and we don't charge extra for that. But that gives you as a buyer really good knowledge on what's going on with the system, so you can make the decision if you want to bring somebody else in. There's some other tests that can be done on private wells, gallons per minute and things like that. We don't go into that. We basically will test it and stress it and see how it recovers at the time of the inspection to make sure that that well is performing based upon the needs of the household itself.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining me and doing this. I know it'll be really informative. I know it'll help my clients. All my clients will get a copy of this video.
Awesome.
So thank you so much.
Yes,
I really appreciate it.
And if anybody out there, I'm sure Connie's going to share our contact information. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to shoot me a text, give me a call. I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
All right.